If you've ever been to the east side of Hamilton, Ontario, there's a narrow street called Rosedale Avenue that most locals avoid after dark. It's not that it's dangerous in the usual sense. No gangs, no drug wars, no visible crime. But ask anyone who's lived there long enough, and they'll all bring up the same place in hushed tones, Residence 103. It's just one unit in a bland, grey, three-story apartment building built sometime in the 1970s. The building has no name, no personality, just a faded brick facade and a rusted mailbox cluster out front. Nothing about it stands out, except for apartment 103. Over the span of just 12 years, 9 tenants lived in 103. None stayed more than 6 months. Every single one suffered psychological collapse. 4 ended up in long-term psychiatric institutions. 2 simply disappeared. 1 died in the bathtub with his eyes wide open. And the remaining 2? They're barely coherent. 1 is on full disability and cannot be left alone. The other doesn't speak anymore, not even to his family. I didn't believe it when I first heard about it. I thought it was one of those internet creepypastas wrapped up in local lore. That is, until I started pulling official records. Hospital reports, police incident logs, rental histories, and every one of them pointed back to the same place. Let me walk you through the timeline. The first tenant I found on record was a young woman named Erica Green, who moved in during the summer of 2012. She was a 26-year-old graphic designer new to the city. At first, everything seemed normal. Quiet building, low rent, lots of natural light. But 3 months in, her downstairs neighbors started hearing strange sounds from her unit. Loud humming, like someone singing into a glass jar, and water running at all hours of the night. Eventually, the super was called to do a wellness check after she hadn't been seen for several days. He found her curled up in the bathtub, fully clothed, whispering something about veins in the ceiling. She was admitted to St. Joseph's psychiatric ward for what was labeled an acute dissociative episode. She never returned to the unit. Her sketchbook left behind was filled with chaotic spirals, disfigured faces, and rows of eyes stacked like shelves. Her last entry read, "I think the apartment dreams, and I'm in it when it does." The next tenant, Amelia Torres, moved in less than 2 months later. She was 29, a nurse who worked the night shift at a local hospital. Co-workers described her as competent and emotionally stable. But by the 5th month, she began skipping shifts. She told her supervisor she couldn't sleep because she was having recurring nightmares of water filling her apartment while something watched her from under the kitchen sink. On August 14, 2013, she was found wandering the hallway naked, screaming that the walls were breathing at night. When police tried to restrain her, she bit one of them and had to be sedated. She was hospitalized for psychosis and put on leave. Her family removed her from the city entirely. Tenant after tenant, the same pattern. Liam Carson, a neuroscience grad student, moved in early 2014. By month 4, he was convinced the apartment was emitting low-frequency sounds meant to disrupt cognition. He had begun pulling copper wires from old electronics and arranging them in circular patterns on the floor. When his brother visited, he found Liam in the kitchen, eyes bloodshot, whispering, "They wanted a doorway." He was institutionalized shortly after. The unit sat empty for 8 months, but rent records show someone named Jay Martin signed a lease in early 2015. There's no further information on who this was. No ID match, no emergency contact, nothing. A local delivery driver claimed he saw someone going in and out wearing gloves and a surgical mask, even before COVID. After 5 months, the landlord filed for abandonment when the tenant stopped responding. When they entered the unit, it was empty, spotless, not a stick of furniture. But the refrigerator had been unplugged, and inside was a spiral drawn in what looked like red wax. No charges, no follow-up, just silence. Neighbors started avoiding the place. One tenant, Deborah Wessler, who lived in 102, right next door, told me in an interview, "You always know when someone new moves into 103. At first, they're polite, friendly even. But after a while, they stop saying hello. You hear them walking at 3 a.m. talking to themselves. And then the water, always the water, running all night like someone's trying to drown something." Deborah said she once knocked on their door to complain, and it opened just a crack. Inside, she saw a woman sitting motionless on the kitchen floor, staring at the sink. The door closed slowly without anyone touching it. But the most disturbing account comes from Daniel Reese, a former military technician who moved into 103 in 2019. He was a skeptic, had heard the rumors, and wanted to disprove them. He outfitted the apartment with cameras, 6 total, and began documenting his stay. The first 5 months were uneventful. He even posted updates on Reddit mocking the legends. Until one night, everything changed. On day 181, the cameras began capturing strange activity. At 2:14 a.m., the kitchen faucet turned on by itself. At 2:17 a.m., the hallway camera caught what looked like a vapor trail slithering across the floor. At 2:19 a.m., Daniel stood completely still in front of the sink for 5 minutes. At 2:26 a.m., all 6 feeds went black. The next morning, police found him in the bathtub, fully clothed, eyes wide open. No signs of struggle, no drugs or alcohol in his system, just catatonia. He hasn't spoken since. His last journal entry simply read, "I hear them when I close my eyes, and they hear me when I don't." Following Daniel's case, the city shut the unit down. The door was reinforced, the windows blacked out with metal plates. Officially, apartment 103 no longer exists. But unofficially, things still happen. In late 2021, a group of urban explorers picked the lock. They claimed the apartment was colder than the rest of the building. The walls were sweating despite it being winter. One of them left after 5 minutes, vomiting uncontrollably. Another claimed to see someone crouching inside the kitchen cabinet, facing the wall like it was praying. 1 week later, that same explorer was reported missing. His shoes were found neatly placed outside his apartment door. He never came back. And then there's the audio file known online as K103 Last, said to have been recorded by a paranormal investigator who spent a night inside the unit. The first few minutes are static, then dripping, then something like a deep, wet breathing, like a clogged drain inhaling. At minute 8:14, a voice, female, distorted, says clearly, "Did you let it out?" At 10:02, the sound cuts completely, and nothing more. The file has been removed repeatedly from hosting sites, but it always comes back. Today, if you walk past 103 at exactly 2:33 a.m., residents say you'll hear it. The faucet running, a low humming behind the wall, and sometimes, faintly, someone crying through the pipes. The apartment is still sealed, but some say it's not about the unit anymore. They say whatever was in there moved into the building itself, that 103 was just the first crack in the wall, and the rest? We're just waiting for it to spread.